Okay, so the school year is finally wrapping up, and you can almost feel that collective sigh of relief, right? But also maybe some exhaustion.
Definitely exhaustion. And for a lot of schools, that relief comes mixed with a bit of, well, disappointment maybe, looking back at how things ended.
Yeah, exactly. Attendance maybe wasn't great. Student engagement felt like pulling teeth sometimes.
Hmm.
And the achievement data, maybe not the success story everyone hoped for after a long, hard year.
It's a tough spot. And you've got frustrated staff too,
Hmm.
right? Wrestling with classroom management, maybe curriculum inconsistencies, just feeling like they couldn't quite reach every kid.
It's a familiar picture for so many school leaders. You work incredibly hard all year, everyone does, but then you look at the data, the test scores, maybe climate surveys, and, well, the needle just didn't move enough.
Or sometimes it feels like it moved the wrong way.
Right. So, okay, it's early June. You've got these summer months stretching ahead before it all kicks off again. What do you do?
Do you just, tell everyone to get some rest and hope for the best next year? Cross your fingers.
Or is there a more strategic way? Can you actually use this summer window to set things up for real success?
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at a really insightful blog post from Dr. Howie Knoff. He's with Project Achieve Educational Solutions.
The post is called Preparing for Excellence This Coming School Year, Summer Planning to Strategically Transform Classroom Instruction, and it's dated June 7th, 2025. It basically offers a roadmap.
Yeah, a practical research-backed roadmap. It's for school leaders who really want to leverage the summer, to drive genuine improvement. Things like instructional effectiveness, how teams work together, making sure support services actually connect.
And Dr. Knopf kicks it off with this really compelling story. It contrasts two middle schools. They faced the exact same challenges at year end, but took totally different paths over the summer.
And spoiler alert,
Hmm.
they got dramatically different results come August. It really anchors his whole argument.
It's a powerful way to frame it. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack those critical insights from Dr. Knopf's work. By the end, you, the listener, should have a much clearer picture of the research and, maybe more importantly, the practical steps you can take to make summer planning a real catalyst for change in your school.
It's about understanding the levers you can pull.
Okay, let's unpack that story first. The past tale of two needy middle schools, Jackson and Roosevelt. You said they faced identical problems at the end of the year.
Pretty much identical, yeah. Declining attendance, inconsistent student engagement, academic productivity was all over the place.
Specific learning gaps.
Big ones, especially in reading and math. You had students feeling disconnected, teachers feeling frustrated. They were dealing with management issues, curriculum that felt inconsistent, just that general feeling of not reaching every student.
And the data back this up.
Oh, yeah. Assessment scores, school climate surveys, it all confirmed these were real significant problems.
So, same difficult starting point. But then summer hits. How did Jackson Middle School react?
They were, well, incredibly proactive. The principal and the school leadership team, the SLT, they didn't wait around. Just 2 days after the last day of school, they launched into 2 full weeks of intensive analysis and planning.
2 full weeks right away. That's a serious commitment. What did that analysis look like? Was it just glancing at spreadsheets?
No, far from it. The blog describes it as systematic, almost forensic. They really dug into their data dashboard, looking at it by grade level, by student subgroups. They weren't just asking what the problems were, but trying to find the root causes.
The why behind the what.
Exactly. Where were the learning gaps biggest? Which groups of students were most disengaged? What instructional strategies seemed to be working or not working?
So they looked at classroom observation data, too, lesson plans.
All of it. Classroom observation notes focusing on instructional effectiveness, student engagement tactics, management approaches. They reviewed actual lesson plans, assessment practices, examples of differentiated instruction, the real artifacts of teaching.
And they did this analysis at different levels.
Yes. Individual teacher level, grade level teams, across departments. A really comprehensive look.
Okay, so after all that digging, what did Jackson's leadership team find? What patterns emerged?
It brought real clarity. They could clearly see patterns of teacher effectiveness, who was consistently getting strong results and where others needed very specific kinds of support. They identified which grade level teams were truly collaborating effectively to impact student learning versus those maybe operating more in silos.
And the support staff.
They saw that too. Dedicated people, for sure, but maybe not always integrated effectively with what was happening in the general ed classrooms. There wasn't always that strong connection.
So armed with this really detailed understanding, Jackson didn't just file it away. By mid-June, they had actual action plans. What did those involve?
Highly targeted plans. For the summer, yes, but also laying the groundwork for the entire next year. They secured funding, brought staff in for intensive summer sessions, focused on designing and implementing these plans.
So focus PD, collaborative work time.
Exactly. And they set up mentoring partnerships, strategically pairing their most effective teachers with colleagues who needed support in specific areas identified during the analysis.
That's smart. Targeted support.
Very. And they didn't forget about new staff either. They developed and actually scheduled a comprehensive onboarding program for all new and untenured teachers, making sure they were ready and supported from day one.
What else? Curriculum alignment.
Yep, they tackled that too, since the analysis showed inconsistencies were an issue. And they kept the connection going through July with, optional virtual check-ins, just enough to maintain momentum without killing the summer break vibe.
So by the end of June, Jackson was in a pretty good place.
A very good place. Clear goals, resources allocated strategically, accountability systems established. That proactive summer work built real positive momentum.
And the payoff. What happened when school reopened in August?
The blog paints a picture of transformation. Staff came back feeling more confident, knowing they had new skills and, importantly, collaborative support systems. Students walked into classrooms with more engaging instruction, clearer expectations, and teachers who were prepared and working together.
So that summer investment really paid off.
Directly. It translated into measurable improvements in instruction, student achievement, and the overall school climate that following year. Momentum was created.
Okay, now the contrast. Roosevelt Middle School. Same tough starting point, same summer ahead, completely different approach.
A stark contrast, yes. Roosevelt's leadership decided to postpone any serious comprehensive planning until those typical 3 pre-service days right before school started in August.
Just 3 days in August? Why? Wait, what was the rationale?
Well, the blog mentions the common reasons you hear. Staff needed a total break. Summer planning would mess up vacations. They figured they could cram everything into those August days.
And Dr. Knopf's take on that?
Pretty blunt. He calls it a fundamental misunderstanding of how school transformation actually works. It basically ignored decades of research on change implementation and what makes professional development effective.
The idea that you can do deep data analysis, strategic planning, build skills, and foster collaboration in just 3 rushed days.
It's just not realistic for complex systems change. You can't build the airplane while you're flying it, so to speak.
So what happened at Roosevelt when August rolled around?
Well, predictably, they had almost no time for the kind of deep needs assessment and data analysis Jackson did back in June, which meant
they couldn't develop targeted action plans based on actual needs.
Exactly. Those 3 days ended up being filled with more generic one-size-fits-all PD instead of anything really incisive. There just wasn't enough time to build those crucial collaborative relationships or develop the shared understanding needed to implement anything new effectively.
Sounds stressful and probably not very productive.
The blog describes it as undermining deep learning. People were likely just trying to survive the information overload.
And the result, when the school year started at Roosevelt.
Staff walked in, essentially, with the same knowledge, skills, and resources they had back in June. That crammed-in August planning felt like just another burden, not an opportunity. There was more anxiety about implementation than confident anticipation. They started the year already behind, in reactive mode.
Wow, that story really highlights it. It's not just when you plan, but it's a whole different philosophy about improvement. Proactive design versus reactive scrambling.
Precisely. It's about intentionally building for success versus just, hoping things get better.
Okay, so Jackson's proactive approach worked, but how did they know what to focus on in their analysis and planning? This leads us to the core of Dr. Knopf's argument, right? Grounding the work in research.
Exactly. He dives deep into the research, starting with the absolute foundation, effective, high-quality classroom instruction.
And the key point is
that decades of rigorous research, we're talking longitudinal studies, meta-analyses show remarkably consistent patterns among teachers who reliably produce strong student outcomes. This holds true across different schools, different student populations.
So this isn't just guesswork. There are identifiable characteristics.
Yes, and understanding these research-validated characteristics is incredibly valuable for school leaders. It gives you a framework, like Jackson used, for making informed decisions about hiring, about professional development, about how you set up support systems.
So the call to action right now in June is for leaders to actually assess their returning teachers against these characteristics, grounded in student results.
That's the idea. Use the research as your guide for that assessment.
Okay, let's get into those characteristics. What does the research say makes a teacher effective? What did Jackson likely focus on?
Well, the blog details several core ones. First up, and this is critical, is strong content knowledge and pedagogical expertise. You got to know your subject inside and out.
But it's more than just knowing the facts, right?
Oh, much more. It's the pedagogical part, understanding how to make that content accessible to learners. Knowing the common sticking points or misconceptions students have, how to sequence learning logically, how to adapt your teaching on the fly based on student understanding. Content knowledge alone isn't enough.
You need to know your stuff and know how kids learn that stuff.
Exactly. And effective teachers are always working on expanding both. Then there's high expectations coupled with appropriate support. This one's huge.
High expectations for all students.
All students. The belief that every student can achieve at high levels. But crucially, you don't lower the bar for students who struggle. Instead, you intensify the support and modify your approach.
So it's the combination, challenge and support.
Yes. Research clearly shows the combo works better than either one alone. High expectations mean challenging assignments, accountability, not accepting minimal effort, but the support has to be there. Clear instructions, modeling, opportunities for practice and revision, creating a classroom where it's okay to struggle as part of learning.
Standards without support leads to frustration. Support without challenge limits growth. Makes sense.
Totally. Next, linked to Jackson's process, is the systematic use of data to inform instruction.
And this isn't just about the big end-of-year tests.
Not at all.
Oh.
It's about using multiple forms of data, constantly. Formative assessments, checking for understanding during lessons, analyzing student work, looking at observation notes, using student feedback.
So gathering information in different ways regularly.
Systematically gathering, interpreting, and then responding to that information, using pre-assessments, maybe quick exit tickets, analyzing errors on homework to see patterns, adjusting pacing, reteaching concepts, providing targeted help based on what the data shows.
And involving students.
That's a key piece the blog mentions, helping students understand their own data, set goals based on it, and see data as useful information for them, not just a grade. It builds ownership.
Okay, what about the classroom environment itself?
That brings us to consistent classroom management and positive climate relationships. Effective teachers create structured, supportive environments where kids feel safe and ready to learn.
Proactive, not just reactive discipline.
Exactly. It's about preventing problems through good planning, clear routines and procedures taught and reinforced from day one. It's about responding to issues early and consistently. And crucially, it's built on positive relationships.
Clear expectations, modeling behavior, consistent feedback.
Yes, academic and behavioral feedback. And the research shows management is really based on respect and relationship, not just asserting power. Good management and good instruction go hand in hand. Engaging lessons prevent a lot of issues.
What about the teacher's own growth?
Absolutely essential. Continuous reflection and professional growth. The best teachers are perpetual learners. They see teaching as this complex graph that always needs refining.
So they're always looking at their own practice.
Constantly. Examining what worked, what didn't, why. Seeking feedback from colleagues, administrators, even students and parents. Actively pursuing professional development, staying current with research, trying new strategies.
And willing to change course if something isn't working.
Yes, even if it's a comfortable habit, they adapt based on evidence and reflection.
You mentioned collaboration earlier. Is that a characteristic too?
It is. Number 6 is effective communication and collaboration. Teaching isn't a solo act, right? It requires partnerships.
With colleagues, families, support staff.
All of them. Communicating clearly and frequently. With colleagues, it means active participation in teams, sharing resources, contributing to school goals, seeking advice, offering support, building that culture of mutual assistance.
And with families.
Proactive, positive communication, regular updates, not just calling when there's a problem, sharing what's happening in class, suggesting ways to support learning at home, responding promptly to questions or concerns. Strong homeschool partnerships really matter for student achievement.
Okay, and the last one.
Cultural responsiveness and equity focus. This is incredibly important. It's about understanding, valuing, and leveraging the diverse backgrounds students bring, cultural, socioeconomic, linguistic, religious, gender identity, all of it. Seeing diversity as an asset.
And how does that translate into practice?
It means building positive classroom climates where that diversity is respected, adapting instruction to connect with students' experiences and prior knowledge, understanding how culture might influence learning styles or communication, incorporating diverse perspectives, creating inclusive spaces where every single student feels valued and respected.
And the equity piece.
That's about actively working to ensure all students have access to high-quality instruction and support, regardless of their background. Advocating for students, challenging biases both implicit and explicit, and working to dismantle any barriers that might stand in their way.
The blog mentions these look a bit different across grade levels, right? Elementary versus middle versus high school.
Yeah, the emphasis might shift. Maybe more focus on foundational skills and relationships in elementary, adolescent development, and interdisciplinary teams in middle, subject depth, and preparing for independence in high school. But the core integrity of these characteristics remains essential at all levels.
So school leaders use these characteristics for year-end audits. How does that work practically?
Dr. Knopf suggests gathering evidence from multiple sources over time, not just a single observation. You look at observation data, sure, but also student outcome data linked to that teacher, feedback from peers or students if available, examples of parent communication, records of PD participation, artifacts of collaboration, a whole portfolio approach.
And this process helps identify different clusters of teachers.
Right. The blog outlines 3 main groups leaders might identify through this process. First, the teacher leaders accomplished. These are your rock stars, basically. Consistently high competence across most characteristics. They're the ones you tap for leadership roles, mentoring, PD facilitation, committee chairs.
Okay.
Teacher leaders progressing. These teachers have clear strengths, but also some defined areas for growth identified through the assessment. They're on the right track, and with targeted support and PD, they'll continue to develop. This is often the core strength of your staff.
And the third group?
Teacher leaders emerging. This group shows a lack of proficiency in maybe several key characteristics. Could be newer teachers needing systematic support, maybe alternatively certified folks who need more foundational PD. Or sometimes it might be staff who haven't really responded to past support efforts and might need more intensive intervention or even help transitioning to a different role or path.
So just like Jackson did, this June analysis drives the strategy for summer and beyond. How do we leverage the accomplished, develop the progressing, and provide targeted support or pathways for the emerging?
Exactly. It makes the planning concrete and purposeful.
But teachers don't work in isolation, usually. Jackson's analysis also looked at teams, so evaluating team effectiveness in June is just as crucial.
Absolutely critical. Because, as the blog emphasizes, truly effective teaching teams don't just happen by chance. They are designed. They engage in systematic, focused strategies specifically aimed at improving instruction and student outcomes together.
This is different from just like teachers sharing a planning period or complaining together.
Total different. It requires intentional leadership from the school, dedicated time set aside for collaboration, and clear protocols for how that time is used. It's an investment, but schools that do it well see huge shifts in culture and effectiveness.
So what does the research say makes a team effective? What are their core characteristics?
Okay, first and foundational, shared vision and collective responsibility. This is the bedrock. The team develops a shared belief that all members are responsible for the success of every student they collectively serve.
That's a big mental shift from my kids to our kids.
It's huge. It moves beyond individual autonomy to collaborative accountability. It means analyzing data for all students together, sharing strategies for students who are struggling no matter whose class they're in, celebrating collective gains. That synergy leads to better outcomes.
You mentioned dedicated time and protocols. That's characteristic number 2.
Yes, regular, focused collaboration time with clear protocols. You absolutely need dedicated, protected time. Consistent, frequent meetings, maybe weekly scheduled when people can actually focus, but just meeting isn't enough.
The time needs structure.
It needs to be focused. Clear agendas, defined outcomes for the meeting, and using systematic protocols for looking at student work together, for analyzing data, for planning lessons collaboratively, for problem solving around student needs. These protocols keep the conversation productive and outcome-oriented.
Avoids just becoming a venting session.
Right. Teams without that focus get frustrated. Teams using structured protocols maintain momentum.
Third, similar to individuals, data-driven decision-making and transparent sharing of results.
Effective teams live and breathe data. Multiple forms, formative checks, student work samples, observations, not just the big annual tests. They collect it systematically. analyze it together.
Maybe develop common assessments or rubrics.
Exactly. Compare performance, identify effective strategies, target needs consistently, and crucially, they transparently share results within the team's successes and struggles. This requires a high level of trust and professionalism. Being willing to say, my students aren't getting this. Can you help?
Creates a culture of openness, tackles problems faster.
Yes. And they use the evidence to modify their collective approaches, adjust pacing, design interventions together. Acting on the data is key.
What about the mix of skills on a team?
That's number 4. Complementary skills and distributed leadership. Effective teams intentionally leverage the diverse strengths of their members. Maybe one person is great with tech, another with differentiation, another with assessment design, another with family engagement.
Inventory those strengths and use them.
And create opportunities for team members to learn from each other. Distributed leadership means different people lead specific tasks or discussions based on their expertise, not just hierarchy or seniority. Maybe the tech whiz leads the session on new digital tools.
Maximizes capacity, gives everyone leadership opportunities.
Right, and makes the team more resilient if one person leaves. Shared leadership is more sustainable.
How do effective teams handle disagreements? Because they must come up.
They do. So, characteristic 5 is open communication and constructive conflict resolution. They build a culture where honest dialogue about practice and needs is expected and safe. It goes beyond superficial politeness.
Candid feedback, root cause analysis.
Yes. Sharing failures as well as successes, asking for help without feeling inadequate, offering supportive but direct feedback, and they develop skills and protocols for handling disagreements professionally when they arise, focusing on the issue, on student outcomes, not on personalities.
Requires clear norms, maybe some training.
Definitely helps. A safe environment where risk-taking is okay. Suppressing conflict leads to bad decisions, but destructive conflict derails everything. Finding that constructive middle ground is vital.
And like individual teachers, teams need to keep learning.
Characteristic 6, continuous learning orientation. They approach their work with humility and curiosity. They know they don't have all the answers, and that improving requires ongoing learning and adaptation.
Seeking out new knowledge together, piloting new ideas.
Exactly. Staying current with research, maybe doing team book studies, attending conferences, engaging in action research, trying a new approach, collecting data on it, analyzing the result honestly as a team, and adjusting based on what they learn. It fuels continuous improvement.
And finally,
Number 7 is systems thinking and coordination. Effective teams understand they're part of a bigger picture. They don't operate in a vacuum.
thinking about how their work connects across grades or subjects, aligning with school-wide goals.
Yes. How does what they do in 3rd grade prepare students for 4th? How do the math and science departments coordinate? They align their work with school and district initiatives and communicate regularly with other teams and leadership.
So effective teams show success through improved instruction, shared resources, better student support, and stronger relationships within the team.
Right. It's about focusing on student learning while also building that professional community and growth. In contrast, ineffective teams often lack purpose, time, get stuck in conflict, or just meet without anything really changing for students.
And again, these characteristics apply across grade levels, just maybe look a bit different. Evaluating them involves looking at meeting notes, shared work, decision processes, not just student scores.
Correct. And the research is clear. Investing in building these strong collaborative cultures pays off in teacher retention, satisfaction, and most importantly, better results for all kids.
So the June call to action. Evaluate your key teams against these characteristics, alongside the individual teacher evaluations, and build those findings into your summer and yearly plans. Okay, so we have effective teachers working in effective teams, but Dr. Knopf says that's still not the whole picture. We need strong support systems for struggling students. That brings in the support staff.
Exactly. Your special educators, counselors, psychologists, reading specialists, instructional coaches, social workers, all those vital roles.
And their role has changed over time. Less pull-out, more integration.
Significantly. The shift has been toward integrated problem solving, consultation, working within multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS. They support students directly, yes, but also build the capacity of general education teachers.
Right.
Are involved in prevention, early intervention, right through to intensive support.
Collaborative consultation, coaching, systems-level work. It's complex.
Very. Which is why understanding the characteristics of effective support staff is so crucial for leaders. Dr. Knopf outlines these two. First, systems perspective and collaborative consultation skills.
Seeing the big picture, how all the pieces fit together.
Yes. Understanding that student difficulties often arise from interactions within the complex school system. They analyze problems ecologically, looking at instruction, behavior systems, family factors, climate, and they work collaboratively with general ed teachers, sharing expertise to empower them, not just take over.
Building teacher capacity through co-planning, co-teaching, problem-solving.
Exactly. Requires strong interpersonal skills,
Mm.
cultural sensitivity, building trust, respecting the teacher's knowledge, offering practical help.
What's next for effective support staff?
Evidence-based practice implementation and fidelity monitoring. Just like teachers, they need to use interventions and strategies that research shows actually work for the specific issues and students they're dealing with.
Not just doing what's always been done or chasing the latest trend.
Right. Systematically implementing validated practices. And this is key monitoring fidelity. Did the intervention get implemented correctly and consistently? Because even a great intervention fails if it's done poorly. They need systems to track that quality and make adjustments.
And cultural competence comes up again here too.
Absolutely. Characteristic 3 is cultural competence and stress-informed approaches. Deeply understanding how culture, socioeconomic status, trauma and stress impact learning and behavior. Recognizing that challenges might stem from these factors, not just an internal deficit.
Adapting approaches, avoiding stereotypes, understanding trauma's impact.
Yes. And implementing practices that promote safety, trust, and empowerment. Avoiding re-traumatization. They also play a huge role in helping general ed teachers understand these factors and create more sensitive and inclusive classrooms.
You mentioned communication being key for teachers, even more so for support staff.
Dr. Knopf calls strong communication and relationship-building skills perhaps the most essential characteristic for them. They're constantly bridging gaps between students, families, teachers, admin.
Communicating effectively with kids who are struggling.
Yes, building trust and rapport in age-appropriate, culturally responsive ways. Communicating with families, often under stress, with empathy, clarity, avoiding jargon, understanding family dynamics, and communicating with colleagues, sharing expertise respectfully, collaborating as equal partners, navigating potentially sensitive disagreements professionally.
And data use, also critical for them.
Fifth characteristic, data collection and analysis expertise. They need to be skilled at collecting, analyzing, and interpreting multiple kinds of data observations, progress monitoring, functional assessments, qualitative info to guide their work and show its effectiveness.
Using data to make decisions about services.
Exactly. Baseline data, tracking progress accurately, making objective decisions to continue, modify, or fade support, and then communicating those findings clearly and actionably to everyone involved, teachers, families, admin, and involving students and teachers in understanding the data too.
Keeping skills sharp.
Number 6, professional growth and knowledge skill currency. These fields evolve rapidly, so a commitment to ongoing learning, staying current with research, critically evaluating new information, reflecting on practice, seeking feedback, and sharing their knowledge with others too.
And the final characteristic for support staff.
Maintaining a prevention-focused, solution-driven mindset, emphasizing proactive approaches, working to identify and address systemic issues that contribute to student difficulties, not just reacting to crises.
Looking for patterns, intervening early.
Yes. And focusing on student strengths and capabilities, not just deficits. Framing the work around what students can achieve with the right support. It shapes everything from goals to interventions to communication.
So again, these characteristics apply across settings, maybe with different nuances. Leaders evaluate them using multiple indicators, focusing on their practices, collaboration, data use, communication things they control.
Right. Because student outcomes depend on many factors. And the June action step is the same. Assess support staff using these criteria. Integrate findings into summer planning and action plans for the year.
Investing in strong support staff really leverages their potential to improve the whole school.
They can be powerful catalysts for improving instruction, building inclusive environments, and ensuring comprehensive student success.
Okay, so this brings us back full circle to the strategic advantage of summer. We've got these research-proven frameworks for evaluating teachers, teams, and support staff. Jackson did this deep analysis in June.
And the critical step, the one that separates the Jacksons from the Roosevelts, is translating those findings into strategic action, using the assessment data to drive decisions about hiring, staffing configurations, targeted PD, team development, strengthening support systems.
And summer provides that unique, invaluable window to do this deep work.
Exactly. Time for reflection, planning, skill building without the daily pressures. Time to be proactive, to design improvements, build capacity.
Dr. Knopf mentions research supporting this, that purposeful summer work pays off.
Yes. Educators involved in specific, focused summer activities show stronger student outcomes, more confidence, higher job satisfaction. That sustained prep time allows people to really integrate new learning, develop concrete plans, build resources for the year.
So based on the assessments done in June, what does Dr. Knopf recommend leaders do during the summer to maximize success?
The approach matters. It should feel strategic and supportive, building understanding and commitment, not punitive or overwhelming. Key steps include: first, transparently sharing the needs assessment results, the good, and the areas for growth. Frame it as a collective opportunity.
Emphasize shared responsibility.
Crucial. Then, provide individualized feedback based on the assessments, focusing on development. Recognize the highly effective with leadership roles. Provide specific, actionable guidance and resources for those needing growth.
Leading to differentiated PD.
Yes. Offer multiple pathways based on identified needs. Allow staff to focus on their growth areas and leverage their strengths to help colleagues. Share resources, celebrate progress, keep people updated to show commitment.
And the most important thing,
Use the summer to establish a clear vision and expectations for the year. Help staff understand why certain priorities were chosen based on the assessment data and how their individual growth fits into the school's collective success. Build that sense of purpose and anticipation.
the blog also connects this to effective principal leadership, right?
Briefly, yes. Leading this kind of transformation requires principals who are learners themselves, who foster collaboration, provide instructional leadership, manage resources well, and actively build a positive culture.
Which brings us right back to Jackson versus Roosevelt.
It perfectly illustrates the difference. Proactive, research-informed summer preparation versus reactive scrambling. Different leadership philosophies, dramatically different results.
Okay, let's summarize the core takeaways from this deep dive into Dr. Knopf's blog. He provides these research-based frameworks for assessing
Teacher effectiveness, collaborative team functioning, and the integration of support services.
But assessment is only the first step. It has to lead to strategic implementation planning
Absolutely. The characteristics provide the targets.
for effective teachers. Strong content pedagogy, high expectation support, data use, management climate, reflection growth, communication collaboration, cultural responsiveness equity.
For effective teams, shared vision responsibility, regular focused collaboration with protocols, data-driven decision sharing, complementary skills distributed leadership, open communication, conflict resolution, continuous learning, systems thinking coordination.
And for effective support staff, systems perspective consultation, evidence-based practice fidelity, cultural competence stress-informed, communicational relationships, data collection analysis, professional growth, prevention-focused solution-driven mindset.
These give you precise targets for summer PD, hiring, structuring support, moving beyond just hoping for improvement.
And investing that time in the summer for reflection, planning, building resources and relationships, enhancing skills, lets you start the year with confidence and purpose.
Not anxiety and uncertainty. The blog's call to action is urgent but doable. It's a choice. Preparation or procrastination. Systematic improvement or wishful thinking.
Investing in summer strategically or accepting the status quo and likely getting similar results next year, the tools are there.
The choice seems clear, and the time to make it is now, as one school year ends and before the next begins.
So what does all this mean for you listening right now? This deep dive has hopefully laid out a clear, research-backed blueprint for using the summer months strategically to drive real school improvement.
And think back to that contrast between Jackson and Roosevelt. That difference between proactive summer planning, rooted in deep analysis, and that last-minute reactive scramble. It led to fundamentally different outcomes for everyone involved.
So here's a final thought to mull over. Where else in your work, or maybe even in your life outside of school, do you see that principle playing out? Where does investing that focused time up front in analysis and preparation lead to significantly better results down the line, compared to just waiting and reacting when problems inevitably arise? Something to think about.